name is Jessica Couch. I'm a fashion and technology expert, and I go to conferences to do research so that you don't have to. Fashion technology is going to change fashion forever, and not only do you need to know exactly what it is and what it does, but you do need to know how it will affect you depending on what you do. Now, you may be wondering, what makes me the expert? And I'm glad you asked. Outside of being a leading, recognized, and subject matter expert, I am someone that has studied fashion technology since around 2013, and I have a master's from Cornell specifically around how digital innovation can affect conversion. So how people shop, what they're looking to buy, and what is going to influence that. And what I found in my research is that technology will absolutely streamline some of the processes that we have now in the fashion industry that are antiquated. However, it may not always be what you think. I've spent my time researching, testing, learning, repeating. I've spent time as a product manager, but I started my career right there on the retail floor, given 10,000 hours in fitting rooms, listening to exactly what drives customers to actually buy a product. I owned a store, and I learned about what actually drives people to purchase online. I learned a lot about peer-to-peer influence and how that works. And then finally, I studied technology as a product manager and what really helps people to adopt technology and like it. That is kind of what makes me an expert. But if that doesn't convince you, I would invite you to read some of my articles that are published in the Business of Fashion, Women's Wear Daily, The Sourcing Journal, and soon Vogue Business. So let's get into it. Why is fashion technology important? Well, I'm so glad you asked. If you haven't noticed, technology is rapidly innovating every single industry very quickly. And while it can be confusing as to how it will affect fashion, I can make it easy for you. Fashion has a ton of inefficiencies. Now, if you've worked in a design room, you know what I'm talking about. If you worked in supply chain in general, you know what I'm talking about. And if you've ever worked in a retail store or in e-commerce, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. Well, technology is here to simply help solve some of the biggest problems in fashion. Now, what types of technology can do that? All types. It absolutely depends on where in the supply chain we are and what the problem is. Now, a lot of times people ask, do I have to be a huge company to invest in technology? Absolutely not. It doesn't matter the size of the company. What matters is that you can properly identify your gaps, your inefficiencies, and work streams that need to be improved. Once you do that and have a really good feel for your organization, how your organization implements new tools, who's in charge of what, you can begin to work backwards to figure out what is the exact problem you're trying to solve. This is important because a lot of people get excited about a technology. They hear something new and they're like, oh my God, we can implement this. I have all of these ideas. That's not the way to go. Technology is great for the entertainment purposes and for gaming and for having a good time. But when it comes to fashion, the purpose of technology is really to match people to product and to drive conversions. Of course, there's an entertainment component to it. And if that helps to drive conversions, I'm absolutely all for that. If those components aren't necessarily going to be the things that helps to reduce your dead inventory, reduce returns, and create happier customers, then you probably want to go in another direction with what technology you want to implement. People also like to ask, what's the most important technology? Well, it's hard to say because, again, it depends on the problem that we are solving. But I would say right now, the technology that's going to have the biggest influence on the industry is absolutely AI. AI is changing everything in the fashion industry, and I do believe it is going to be important for brands to rapidly accept this change, understand exactly what it is, and pick the best AI tools for your organization. So there's generative AI tools like Raspberry AI. Now, this was specifically designed with the workflow of designers in mind. So it helps designers to both ideate and create new products that people actually want to buy according to their CEO. Now, I spoke with their CEO, Cheryl, and she mentioned that some of the problems that she saw outside of the antiquated work streams that are in the design process was not utilizing the right data to implement into the creation process and produce things that people are absolutely going to buy. This is a big deal, and we'll talk about this later, because when people don't buy products, we get a lot of dead stock, and dead stock is a huge, huge problem for a lot of brands and retailers. Now, you may be thinking like, well, will this replace the job of a designer? Like, how can designers use generative AI and not feel like they're going to get replaced or that their creativity isn't appreciated? Creativity is appreciated, obviously, and there's so much clothing waste and dumps right now to show you just how much creativity should outweigh actual data in the design process, but we won't get into that. This is not a tool that's going to replace designers. This is simply a tool to help the designers' workflows to be a little bit more productive. If you want more information about Raspberry AI, I say check them out. They'll give you a demo. They're really awesome. And they just received a huge round of investment. So if you didn't believe that Gen AI is going to change fashion, I would say follow the money. Next, in Gen AI, we have companies like Diffusely. What Diffusely is doing is very interesting, slightly controversial, but it's important to know. They're cutting the cost of photography production by 50%. Now, how are they doing this? Their technology helps to generate models. And you may be wondering, what do those models look like? But we're not talking about silly, goofy avatars. We're talking about real life-like, human-looking avatars instead of the uncanny valley issue where things look a little creepy and you can't really use them and nobody cares. The reason why this is super important is the demand that social commerce has created, which is people buying products through social media, means that there has to be more and more photo shoots every day. Content is king. Everyone's doing content. You always need a new look, a new person, a new style. This can certainly become a financial burden for a lot of brands and retailers who are trying to keep up with the demand of content. Companies like Diffusely makes this easy because they generate new avatars that actually matches your customer demographic. You may remember when companies first started generating digital models, it got a little weird, but some of those digital models look more like gaming models. This is not that. And then some of those digital models, people kind of gave some feedback and said, is this cutting into diversity, equity, and inclusion? And the answer is no. What this is doing is helping to create more diversity because you are able to generate models that look very similar to your actual demographic. Plus, if you have fit models that you know have a certain body type, but maybe they're not comfortable being models, or maybe you want to change their look, this is a great tool to both answer the fit question and the parity question between peer-to-peer engagement. Now, a stat that you should keep in mind before you dismiss this is that when people see a product and someone who looks like them, they are 4 times more likely to buy. So if you're looking for ways to get your customers excited about your product and to help them feel like they're being reflected in your marketing, absolutely consider Diffusely. Now, this is just the tip of the iceberg of what AI is doing. And while I won't go into a ton of details, there's so many other ways to use AI, Gen AI, specifically in fashion to make sure that you are cutting costs and you're being productive and you are streamlining your workflows, which is so important. Some of the biggest challenges in fashion technology currently is just product adoption. Fashion is really monkey see, monkey do. Brands want to know that something worked with someone else before they use it because in the past, technology did exist and made a ton of promises. And then, of course, they under-delivered. But we are in a new era. See, the beauty of having AI is that tools no longer have to have a long adoption period that requires you to be so super proficient. You're spending 8 to 12 weeks learning it just to get confused when you start it up, and now you're not confident enough to use it in the way that it should be used. AI-based tools are super easy to use, so that learning gap that exists with other technologies really doesn't exist with AI. Plus, if you're using ChatGPT, you see how simple it is to ask questions and get answers immediately. This is a beautiful, beautiful thing because some time ago, I hosted a roundtable at PI Apparel. Some of the feedback that I got from people in their companies who had certain technologies, but they hadn't used it, people were very intimidated by technology. They're not sure how it works. They're not sure how it will benefit them. And so they didn't use it. Second issue was the time that it takes to learn a new technology. A lot of people in organizations were intimidated by that amount of time. And to be honest, they told me in confidence that no one wanted to train on the weekends and not get paid to learn a tool that could possibly replace their job one day. Obviously, there's so many gaps in this way of thinking, but this is how people feel, and so we have to pay attention to it. This is the most important part of integrating technology and why you have to know what problem you're solving, the sentiments around your personnel, is what people fear they're not going to utilize properly. Have no fear. Newer tools, especially AI-based tools, are making this super simple so that no one has to be left behind in the tech revolution. Now, no technology is going to be perfect. Technology fails all the time. You really have to have patience when it comes to implementing understanding the right technological tool. You are going to test, learn, and repeat. So having a strategy to do that within your organization is super important so that no one gets upset when things aren't working in the way that they should. All of these things are new. These new workflows take time to adopt, and you have to have a cushion in order to deal with problems that could arise. So know that these are not perfect tools. They never claim to be, but they absolutely are the future of this industry. Investors who maybe have been turned off in the past of putting their money into fashion tech for various reasons that are all respectable, now is the time to start considering which technology is best to invest in. It's no longer a question of if you're going to get a return, but it's more of a question of when you're going to get a return. As I mentioned, AI is streamlining so many processes and tools to make things easier. But there are a ton of companies that need investment, are super scalable, that helps to create new workflows that solve billion-dollar problems in this trillion-dollar industry. There are frameworks of choosing the right tool that I would suggest. I would love for investors to reconsider the fashion tech space. In fact, Andreessen Horowitz did, and they made their investment into Raspberry AI. I think this is a big indication that investment into this space is going to continue, and hooking up with the right companies solving the right problem will be super imperative in the future. As a fashion technology expert, again, I understand both the technological side, the implementation side, building right tools, solving problems, but I also understand the fashion industry very well. That gives me a very great perspective on understanding the past issues with fashion technology, why things don't work, why things failed, and also where we can go in the future in order to avoid those same mistakes. Brands and retailers should be very optimistic about what's going to happen. And if you're not optimistic, then perhaps watch other people implement these tools and make more money and then jump on the bandwagon. Either way, fashion technology is going to change our industry forever. I also think this is a great time for educators to help your students be prepared for a changing industry, and for school systems to really get on board with rethinking your curriculum. I've taught at FIT, NC State, Duke, Cornell. I've taught at several universities as a guest lecturer, no matter where I am teaching. Students come up to me all the time and say, oh my God, we're not learning this. This is what I've been wanting to learn. So step it up, universities. Definitely update these outdated curriculums, understand how the industry is changing, and prepare our future workforce so that they are not disappointed. There will be tons of opportunities to connect with me in the future. I'm actually building a fashion technology one-on-one curriculum. I want you to stay in touch with me in the future if you're interested in fashion technology. I'm building a fashion technology curriculum, as well as putting together some really cool activations and really cool conference type things so that people can learn exactly what is needed for this space in a way that is fun, playful, but also straight to the point. If you haven't signed up for my newsletter on LinkedIn, make sure to do so. Follow me on the platforms and stay tuned, because I'm telling you, fashion tech is going to take off this year in a way like never before, and you do not want to miss out.